is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.
Comptroller General told the National Assembly House of Representatives that the president has directed that he shares whatever grain produced in Nigeria that was seized by the customs to be sold to the needy within the country, and the ones that are foreign made and there were attempt to smuggle them into the country would be sold back to the local market. And we know that the International Monetary Fund also is asking the government to address food insecurity. They should make that their top priority. So aside from, you want to remove subsidy on electricity and anything, blah, 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 but food security issue is one that is paramount. They're saying you need to address that. You need to fine-tune whatever conditional cash transfer policy that you have to ensure that people have the basic essentials. So, we see customs reporting that amid food insecurity, EFCC said it has arrested 21 trucks loaded with food and non-food items heading toward Chad Republic, Central African Republic, and Cameroon. According to the Commission spokesman, the truck were intercepted in a sting operation at major exit route at Kalabari, Gamburu, Ngala, and Bama Road, Borno State, by operative of Maiduguri Zona Command yesterday, and that the food were cleverly covered in the truck that would have gone undetected, but for the eagle-eye vigilance of EFCC operatives, adding that the arrest is expected to stem the tide of food insecurity occasioned by unscrupulous antic of smugglers across the country. And it's not just the EFCC. I mean, the boss of the Nigerian Customs, said the House of Representatives also that they've intercepted some, and so far the president has directed that they be sold to people. At the Seme border command of the NCS, he said they intercepted 400 bags of beans worth about 61.45 million on the verge of being illegally exported to Benin Republic there, and then giving all that update. So, all of this effort makes it look as if, all right, there's so much we're dealing with. If we get the smugglers who are taking food out, maybe there will be food. And the CBN front, they are dealing with people like Binance, dealing with BDCs and saying, if we address Binance has made so much money off of Nigeria, enough for them to shut down their Naira account. If we deal with BDC, we close down on this, it will help to stabilize the Naira. So we're seeing attempt to stabilize the Naira, an attempt to jumpstart the economy, an attempt to put warm food in our belly. But what will this all translate to at the end of the day? Over to you, Dr. Majeed. You seem to have the foresight to read into the future. I mean, there are a lot of things that you've said on this show that has come to. So we're all ears.
Well, sometimes if you do a wrong diagnosis of an ailment, so you are likely to also prescribe a wrong antidote. And so you'll be treating an ailment with the wrong antidote. I don't know what happened is, God forbid, the patient will likely die. Because whereas the patient probably was suffering from maybe typhoid fever, and you are busy treating malaria and giving the person overdose of malaria
drugs
or medications. And so most likely the patient will die. So that is the case, I see, with our current situation in Nigeria. Our leaders seem to be convinced about their very wrong diagnosis of a problem, and they are applying equally wrong solutions, and with a lot of effort too. So, I mean, it has taken you about, say, 2 or 3 minutes into the show to reel out all of the efforts they are making from the EFCC to the customs, to the CBN, to solve problems that we are confronted with today as a country.
On one hand, Nigerians will say at least they are doing something, even though it sounds a bit desperate.
There is such a thing called busy doing really nothing. You're just busy, to be seen to be busy. What is important is not to be seen to be busy, but what is the outcome of your being busy? How does this solve the problem? Now, I'll ask you a simple question. The impounding of trucks taking food stuffs or food crops across the border, please, how has that impacted on the price of Indomie in Abuja, price of milk, price of a bag of rice, price of a bag of grain, basic grains, price of tomato, price of fish and other sources of protein, animal protein? How has that really solved it? These are the questions. And when the government decides that the reason for food security, by the way, let us first of all define what food security means.
Yeah.
Food security is the availability accessibility and affordability of food to all. This is how the United Nations define food security, to all people that are domiciled within a territorial jurisdiction. That is, if it's talking about Nigeria today, food security in Nigeria will mean that all of us have access to food, not some of us, not a few of us. It means everybody here has access to food and are able to afford it. See, that affordability component is what we're dealing with in Nigeria today. Not availability. Food is available. Food is not scarce, my dear Oracle. There's no scarcity of food. The government has created a narrative that there's scarcity of food because people are smuggling food out of Nigeria. And so they are busy running after those they claim are smuggling food. But the question is, I've not gone to the market in the last 6 months, up until yesterday, to look for any food item and I did not get it. And it was not available. And there were too many people queuing up to buy a true fee of such food. I've not experienced such before. And anybody that has experienced such, please should let us know today. What we have experienced is that we're not going to the market now to buy food. It's available. We can access it, but we can't afford it. We don't have the money to pay for it because it is too expensive.
Yeah.
That's what the government should be dealing with. The affordability component of food security in Nigeria. Availability, it is there. Accessibility is there. That's what the challenge is, despite the insecurity.
But then we're also seeing the price of food spike. Isn't that also a result of the fact that perhaps certain people are shipping it or hoarding it?
That's not the reason. The only time you can attribute that to the spike in price is if it becomes scarce. And because of its scarcity, maybe you go to a shop today to buy a bag of rice, and there are only 5 bags, and there are 100 people queuing up to buy that 5 bag. So naturally, traders would, because it is now scarce, probably they also getting it, with much more difficulty than they would only get. They don't have it, readily available in their own shops too. So they might likely hike prices because they don't even know what to happen next. The volatility and uncertainty of supplies makes things expensive. That is not the case. The case is that you can't afford it because your wages have remained stagnant and inflation has eaten it up. And so you go to the market, you can no longer afford even a mudu of beans, a mudu of gari, because you don't have the money to buy it. So what is government supposed to do? Address the affordability component of of food security. Not the availability, accessibility. Again, I keep saying it. Food is available as it within a reasonable limit. Food is available. We can access it. Go to the market. Drive around Abuja, where we live. Drive around all the markets in Nigeria. Food is just there waiting for you. Staring at you. You can't afford it.
Yeah.
You can't buy it. Somebody just displayed the price of one of the most widely consumed beverages in Nigeria, very common beverage. And the price is now over 20,000 naira for the jumbo size. And I'm like, whoa. Okay. So even water to drink, packaged water, the one you call pure water, the one that is bottled, is no longer affordable.
I mean, even if you're looking at the basic one, which is the sachet water,
people have been
complaining as to how it's
so how is the export of grain to Niger or the smuggling of grain to Chad, how is that related to the price of pure water? And there are 2 ways to secure food for people or food security. There are 2 ways to achieve food security in any country. 2 ways. Number 1, if you don't have security, physical security, where people can go to farms and make sure they produce crops to make food crops available in sufficient numbers, you're likely to have problem of availability. But luckily for us, despite the challenges in security, and maybe because of our dwindling or thoroughly diminished purchasing power, the available food in the market is something we cannot even really consume. We can't even afford it. So there's availability within the threshold of our own affordability. So that problem is not really here with us yet. Secondly, you need energy security to be able to guarantee food security, especially to make it affordable. It's not even available because I'll tell you something. The cost of diesel has gone up. Go and ask an average farmer who has to buy diesel at between 1,500 or 1,700 per litre to power his tractor to plow the farm. Such a farmer cannot sell a tube of yam to you when he or she used to buy diesel at say 300 naira, 400 naira, 500 naira, or less than their price they are buying it now. That is a factor in what is making food crops, the price of food crops, increase. Now, to transport these food items from the market, from the farms to the market and to the city centers requires road transportation, either diesel-powered heavy duty trucks, or petrol-powered smaller vehicles. You see them on the road all the time. The price of petrol now is almost 700 naira. In some places, it's slightly above. You cannot buy, a farmer cannot sell to you, or a produce dealer cannot sell to you a mudu of gari when he had to transport it at the rate of 195 naira per litre of petrol. Now that he's buying it for almost 700 naira, it is not possible. It's economically impossible. That's why it's called cost push food inflation. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's not about smuggling. This is about the fact that to take this from one place to the other now requires higher cost of energy input, which is fundamental to everything we do. Now talk about, for example, the preservation of food crops. There's some food items that need to preserve, tomato and other perishables. You need to preserve them. It requires energy because most times either you don't have adequate power supply, or you now have to use either petrol-powered or diesel-powered generators to preserve them for you to go and buy these things. All of these things require energy, one way or the other. And the cost of energy today in Nigeria is very high and be above affordability threshold. And so businesses that are involved in food processing and food agro-allied, food merchandising are having to pay higher through the entire value chain to get this food to where you can now go and access them. That cost has been added, not because they are greedy, not because they are wicked. It is simply a matter of cost and pricing.
I mean, cost of production has spiked on all fronts.
It has spiked because of government's policy. They will talk about Forex too. When you floated your national currency for an import-dependent economy, where most of our consumables, even our industrial output, depends so much on importation. Importation of spare parts, importation of machinery for food processing, importation of so many other things that you also need to add to the value chain that is locally sourced here. When you add all of these factors, you realize that it's no longer possible to have price of food coming down. And added to the recent Malay, or added to this mix of increasing cost of production, is a recent decision by the CBN to increase interest rates. On one hand, it was supposed to attract foreign portfolio investment. But according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, according to NECA and other critical stakeholders, they have come out to say, look...
The Edo State governor doesn't count as a critical stakeholder because he's one of those who's also criticized.
I'm just saying, yes.
Yeah.
So people have come out to say, are you not aware that what Nigeria needs now is foreign direct investment, not portfolio? That is productive form of investment, both for local investors and for foreigners. And when you increase the cost of borrowing, cost of funds, how are you expecting this to impact positively on inflation? Because as a matter of fact, now that you have increased interest rates, it means the cost of production has increased because the cost of borrowing has increased. So inflation is going to increase. That's what we are seeing today. Go and ask any businessman who has a running facility with a bank.
But the IMF seems to think otherwise. Because yesterday, IMF said,
always thinks otherwise, and then come out to tell you that you fight food inflation. You should ensure food security. IMF will always tell you that. So if you continue to deal with IMF, it will leave you this kind of confused state of flow that we are in today. So what has happened is that this latest policy has added to the cost of production across the board. Because ask any businessman, they will tell you that most of them are actually preparing to pay as high as between 30 and 32% interest rate to their various banks across the entire value chain of the economy in this country, including agriculture, of course. Because farmers also need loans, food processors need loans. Businesses run on loans, really. That is standard practice globally. Now, the question will now be, what is the Nigerian government supposed to do vis-a-vis how other countries have been able to contain food inflation enough to achieve food security, especially the affordability component, which is what is ailing us as we speak. Number one, you see food bar, like energy, and national currency of any country cannot and should not be subjected to the ravages of market forces. No. No country that is what is sought. I used to use the word no country in the developed hemisphere. I mean the developed hemisphere is countries you look up to. there's no country in that part of the world that does not subsidize food. You know, I've talked about energy subsidy for a long time.
Yeah.
In addition to energy subsidy.
Okay, Dr. Majeed, can we just quickly go on a break and we'll take the energy subsidy position afterwards? Stay with us.
Abuja, our mic is always on. That's why we give you the microphone to take your business to a higher level. Get your branding to a higher.
Hello, my name is Kimberly. I'm the host of Hard Facts, and I bring you the biggest stories driving conversation every weekday here on 95.1 Nigeria Info Hard Fact Show. I love to get your opinion and conjectures, but the facts you cannot dispute here on Hard Facts. Join me and let's talk.
Audio Jungle.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info Abuja. And just so you know, we're on YouTube also at Nigeria Info Abuja. Asu Peter, we see you. Says, good afternoon, Dr. Majeed, Madam Speaker. Please, when did the FCC become immigration? Somebody's not doing their job but still collecting salaries. Ayewo says, I wonder when Benin Republic is producing for their currency to be stable. Only in Nigeria would dollar determine how we live our lives. Our government know what to do, but they choose not to. Conversation continues with Dr. Majeed. So, Dr. Majeed,
Yes.
let's go ahead.
In addition to energy security, because just like food security, energy security is similarly defined as the affordability, availability, and accessibility of energy products and services. And so most countries prioritize food and energy security, where they cannot actually prioritize others. You have education security too, healthcare security, you have even housing security. A lot of other things government can do. But if you can't do another one, if you cannot provide subsidized housing for citizens, if you can't provide subsidized healthcare for citizens or subsidized education, food and energy is something you must ensure your country. Otherwise, people will starve, people will lose faith in the state. In fact, that is like an aberration. It's like an obliteration of what you call the social contract between the citizens and their leadership. Because that is the most fundamental. And so, globally, countries prioritize food subsidy through massive investment in agricultural production. And so, according to the United Nations Food Organization, as much as $540 billion are spent over a number of years to subsidize food globally. Because the citizens of these countries know, and the leadership know that, look, to make a man law-abiding, to be able to just live normally, food shouldn't be a problem. So for those who live in the UK, who live in Europe, who live in the US, they know that food is subsidized by the government of this country. The same to Middle East countries, massively. So on one hand, the government of Nigeria has failed on both counts. First, they have failed to provide energy security, which is necessary to drive the entire economic space. So if you want food to be affordable in Nigeria, it's not to go to the border today and start chasing after people that are taking food items that they cultivated with their money and are exporting to other countries. That is not the solution. The solution is look at what is driving food inflation. High cost of energy, primarily. That's one. So what do you need to do to address this issue? It brings us back to the question I've always talked about. This government, if you want food items to come down today, please restore subsidy back to the levels you met it in 2023. On the morning of May 29, the price of petrol was 112 naira per litre, right? The price of rice, the price of yam wasn't as high as this today, right? Take it to that level first. Then look at the cost of diesel. You see, with the regulated diesel in the early 2000s, and we thumped our chest. See, it's available, even though the price may not be as cheap as, but it's available at least. We conquered the availability aspect of it. And for a while, we didn't know it was hurting until now. So in addition to the cost of petrol being subsidized back, because it's a responsibility of government. Anybody that tells you otherwise, you be rest assured that as long as government does not do this, we will keep having this conversation forever. In addition to subsidizing petrol, back to the levels you met it, because you can't fault a man for meeting subsidy on petrol at 195 naira per litre. Even when that in itself was high as at the time, it's not if it was affordable. But to now say petrol at 700 naira because of your own making, it's your responsibility. I have to take it. Let him restore subsidy back to the levels he met it. If you cannot increase subsidy by reducing price of petrol as at the time you came in, like Dahiru did in 2007. People forget this. When Adua became president, he made petrol price at 75 naira. He reduced it by increasing subsidy to 65 naira. And heavens did not fall. There was stability within complaint of hunger at that period. So he has to restore subsidy back to the levels he met it to bring down the cost of energy input. Let me give you one statement that was made recently by a prominent governor in this country, Governor Zulu. Governor Zulu said to achieve security in Borno, he's going to subsidize petrol. That the major energy input for agricultural production in the state is petrol. He said it openly. And recently, Governor Zulu has said, look, I share a lot of palliatives in this state, but I can tell that palliatives are no longer sustainable. He said it.
Okay, he's going to subsidize petrol for farmers.
In his state, because of food security for farmers. Because he said that is the major energy input for farm production and agri and food production in his state. So he's going to have dedicated petrol stations that's going to subsidize petrol to give up, meaning that he has come to the realization that, look, if these people don't have cheap source of petrol that runs most of their farm implements and inputs, you can't have cheap food. And Zulu was come out last week in relation to this. To say, look, I am saying it loud and clear that people should know. Palliative in terms of food division is no longer sustainable. It's now very expensive. We can't afford it anymore. He has said so.
All right.
Now, in addition to subsidizing energy, first, I'm saying the government must impose subsidy now on diesel. Because what diesel is doing for our economy is something that is unimaginable. Nigerian companies cannot compete both locally and overseas.
How about improving electricity to cushion some of this?
We are talking about the low-hanging fruit. But we talked about improving electricity.
Also, it's more difficult to achieving
because the thing is, you have diesel now, so just impose subsidy on it. When with this kind of government we have and the one we had before, when are we going to have adequate power supply? I mean, it looks like a journey to nowhere. So I'm just saying, all that should be taken for granted that the country like Nigeria should have absolute, should have adequate supply of electricity. It should be taken for granted, but we don't have it. And it doesn't look like in the shortest period of time, with where this government is going and one before it, I don't think we can achieve it. I'm saying, in the immediate, and when you have adequate electricity, my dear, you must subsidize electricity where you have to. Subsidy on energy is something that is a constant. It's not something you can do. You can't run from it. Either electricity, either diesel, whatever you want to call it. You must subsidize this. Now, apart from this energy subsidy I want to impose, don't forget that before now, food wasn't exactly very affordable in Nigeria. It has only gotten worse now. We've always had difficulty to feed well in Nigeria. For as long as I can remember. This is the truth. And why? Because government has not invested enough in agricultural production in order to subsidize farmers and make sure that the entire value chain is subsidized to achieve food security. Food security, energy security is an integral part of national security.
All right.
The reason why you're having social unrest in Nigeria is because of lack of energy security and absence of food security right now. The AFDB has won the federal government. Even I'm surprised because the president actually told us to move subsidy on petrol. But AFDB has turned around to issue an advice to the federal government to say, look, if the energy security you are facing persists, there will be food insecurity, there will be social unrest in Nigeria. So what are they telling the government? Go back to the basics. In addition to subsidizing food production and subsidizing energy, please reduce interest rate to single digit, as is the practice in most developed hemisphere. Single digit. Make cost of borrowing very, very, very low for such an economy that is as depressed as this. So that people that want to borrow for farming businesses or for any other form of manufacturing or any other activity in the economy can produce at cheaper rates for people to be able to afford at the current rate of 30 naira per month minimum wage. These are the things government must do. It has to put on its thinking cap. But they are progressing in error. They are doubling down on months of subsidy. They are doubling down on the floating of the naira. They are doubling down on all of the wrong policies that they have implemented, including even increasing interest rates.
You know what? I see a conflict here, Dr. Majeed. As much as a lot of people are also gravitating in this line of thought that you've had as to remove subsidy, we can't continue on this trajectory. The more subsidy is removed, the hardship it imposes is one that we're even seeing from the looting of FCDA warehouse to passerbys and their truck and all of that. However, the people that we go to for loan, people like the IMF,
Yes.
people that you know that they give condition, they give policy direction before they will hand you any amount of money,
Yes.
are still insisting that if you continue to subsidize fuel and petrol, it will cost Nigeria 2.33 trillion naira, or 3% of our GDP in 2024. And they put this warning in their report of the just concluded staff Article 4 consultation, which was issued by IMF country office to the country, saying that the capping of fuel price, electricity below cost recovery could have a fiscal cost of 3% in our GDP. So this is advisory to a certain degree to say you can't continue to do this. But I feel like they're speaking on both sides of their mouth.
Sometimes we have to be wary of such advisory.
But we go to them for loans, don't
Why
we?
do you go to them for loan? Because of the next story we're about to take. Instead of that governor of that state, who we're about to discuss his own story, who has bought SUVs. If you know the price of SUVs.
Kebbi States, let's put it out there.
That is the reason why you're going to have for loans. I have talked about it here on several occasions. Integrity-based leadership that is absolutely bereft of corrupt practices will save you the trauma of IMF and the experimentation of IMF. IMF will not tell America to stop subsidizing petrol. Why wouldn't they tell America to do that? IMF will not tell Britain to stop subsidizing food. How much are we spending on subsidizing energy in Nigeria? How much is
2.33 trillion
how much is
naira.
2.2 trillion compared to $130 billion that China spends on the same
Sitting
purpose?
side by side to our budget.
That is because you are not working enough. It brings back to the question of when the government insists that it doesn't do business, it's like a father or a head of a household who does nothing and simply borrows to live. He will live in debt. He will not be able to afford the basics for his family. That is the situation with Nigeria. Nobody put us here. Let me digress a little bit. There's something I've been discussing since yesterday on other platforms. You see, we've gone to Qatar to discuss investments, right?
And we saw their museum, yeah?
Saw their museum, saw their emir, but a young man whose father abdicated for him to take over. Because his own father actually overthrew his own father way back to also take over when his grandfather was not leading the country right. Thank you very much. You see, we've gone to Qatar and back. And again, as with all our economic misadventure, there are no critical lessons learned from Qatar, even by those who went to Qatar. As a matter
But
of
they
fact,
talked about some
as a
partnership.
matter of fact, if we had studied Qatar very well, we shouldn't have even gone to Qatar to ask for investment in the first place.
Why?
Thank you very much. The question is one, how did Qatar become Qatar? Enough for us, a country of 200 million people, to be going to a country of less than 400,000 people to ask for investment? How did Qatar become Qatar? So Qatarish that they have so much to spend.
They have oil, Dr. Majeed. And
You have
given
oil- you have
the
oil- you
proportion
have
of
oil.
oil to their population, they have in abundance.
You have oil too. Gabon has oil as well. Gabon is not as rich as Qatar. Gabon is almost, I won't say they don't have the same population, but they're also a very small populated country. But Gabon does not have the kind of wealth that Qatar is having. So the question is, why is Qatar rich? I'll tell you today. Apart from prudent management of their resources and a responsible leadership, Qatar does business as a government. The oil resources of Qatar and their enormous gas potentials have been converted into wealth by a state-owned energy company called Qatar Energy, owned by the state of Qatar, 100%. Unlike NNPC, you know what Qatar does? You know what Qatar Energy does? They explore, They refine. They have 3 refineries functioning, so they export both refined products and even crude oil. And they have one of the largest LNG facilities in the world. And so Qatar has become a gas superpower thanks to Qatar Energy. And so they have a lot of inflows into the country, to the extent that they have a very low tax regime, one of the lowest in the world. Their citizens don't even pay income tax, really. Now, Qatar as a state, when our president went to Qatar to ask for investment, it is the Qatari state that's going to actually come to Nigeria to invest if they want to invest. The state. It's not private companies. It's Qatari state, Qatari government. Because Qatar's SPV, Special Purpose Vehicle for Investment Overseas, is this Qatar Investment Authority. It is their own.
Not private.
No.
Ah.
It's their own sovereign wealth investment authority. What you have here, where they dedicate a fraction of their enormous earnings from their well-managed oil and gas infrastructure that is state-owned. I'm emphasizing it. And so they dedicate as much as $500 billion to that authority to invest all over the world in thriving businesses and entities to bring back more revenues. And so if you look at the investment portfolio of Qatar Investment Authority globally, it includes companies like Harrods. You know Harrods Markets? Harrods stores in UK.
London, yeah.
That used to be owned by the Al Fayed family. Qatar bought it over from them. They've bought a number of European football clubs.
Yeah.
They have investments in ICT companies across the globe. They have investments in companies, particularly in France. They have a very strategic partnership with France. So they have shares, for example, in Total. So it means that anywhere Total is operating in the world, a fraction of the profit goes into Qatar. Thank you. They have investment in Air Liquide. They have investments in a number of companies, including Volkswagen Group. So anywhere you see Volkswagen being driven in the world, Qatar is getting a percentage of the profit because they have investments there. These are the kind of companies Qatar invests in. Qatar does not do heavy lifting investment. That is, they come to your country and they start investing in agricultural production or mining. No, they don't have the time to stay under the sun to do that. They simply stay in Doha and their money works for them across board. They have investment in Barclays banks, BNP Paribas.
Well, sorry to interject, but they're saying they want to improve collaboration in areas of education, enterprise development, investment promotion, youth empowerment, mining, tourism, and sport. Is when President Tinubu met with the Emir.
You went there to ask for investment from people that don't have the capacity to give them investment. What do you want them to tell you? Or to tell you, no, we'll invest in your country. So they told you, we'll do this now. Okay, bye-bye. So we'll see you after Ramadan. Yes. So you need to understand the trajectory of a country's investment portfolio for you to now want to key in. So that is the kind of investment they do. They don't do heavy lifting investment because they're not interested in that. They don't need it. They go to very thriving entities or either state-owned in other countries.
Put their money to work for them.
Simple. They don't have the energy. Can't you how relaxed the Emir of Qatar was looking so casual? Because the monies that they've made through Qatar Energy is working for them.
I didn't know so much about them until the World Cup. And I read up so much about Qatar and just realized, boy, oh boy, these people are flourishing.
Thank you. Now, it is a state capitalist country. It's a state-driven economy. Al Jazeera belongs to the Qatari royal family, supported by the government of Qatar. One of the best media outfits in the world today.
Al Jazeera, yeah.
Al Jazeera. What am I saying in essence? But you, on the other hand, you've gone to Qatar to look for investment. But you have a philosophy that tells you that you can't do business. But your governor can buy SUVs and charge to traditional law. But you cannot invest that same money.
Lawmakers, state.
To lawmakers. But you can't invest that same money to establish a factory in Kebbi to process whatever it is that they have as an endowment. And if it is profitable enough, and Qatar sees that, this is profitable. Hey, Mr. Governor, if we give you, say, $2 billion, can this increase your profitability and give us our share? You've not done that, and you're going to them to come and do the heavy lifting. You are operating a philosophy that has kept you poor eternally, as in kept you grounded, kept you the way you are. And you're going to a country to seek for help who's operating an opposite form of economic philosophy. What should that tell you? Why not change to what he is doing? I mean, why is he able to run an enterprise as a state and you're not able to? What is the missing gap? Why not look at that? Before now, China used to be our preferred, China used to be. China is exactly the same system with Qatar. The Chinese government is fully in charge of. But
China is willing to do the heavy lifting as long as they're familiar with their personnel, their resources, and everything.
And that the heavy lifting is for the benefit of China. That's why the Chinese foreign investments are very more beneficial to China than to you, the destination country. Can you, sorry to say this, can you point to me 2-3 people around you in your community that works for a Chinese company that you can say is having a truly bright white-collar job? So think very well and tell me. I've not seen before. I don't know if you have seen.
Well, I don't know of one personally.
You get the point. So it tells you the kind of investment even China brings into Nigeria or India. I don't blame them. They're trying to also develop their own capacity. So what they're doing essentially is to come and invest here and take resources from you through your patronage of their goods and services. It's not their fault. Nigeria by now should have joined the League of Overseas Investors by now. If we have put our house in order. Because overseas investment is more profitable than foreign direct investment. Yeah. I've always said this. Now what am I saying? I said, we have learned nothing from Qatar. We are back, smarting from that visit. We've gone to Dubai, the same thing. We've gone to China and back, the same thing. When are we going to learn the rules that these people apply to their own economies? And say, look, to kickstart production and make Nigeria economy productive as it's supposed to be today, the government must take the lead. But that government must be above board like Caesar's wife, must be reformed to become a saint. So that in terms of efficiency, in terms of capacity, in terms of capability to deliver, you will now know that, look, government is now like, in short, it's like godlike. It's a godlike figure on the earth now that is ready to do the needful. Until government takes this responsibility, we will go from Qatar. You know, if we have gone to Qatar now, maybe the next country will go to be Sao Tome and Principe to look for investors.
You know, given the fact that Ukraine sent us grain, people are even angry that you might even want to go to Gaza for something else.
That reminds me.
It's becoming a little too desperate.
People talk about Ukraine being in war and sending you grains. You know why? Ukraine is a grain superpower. You know why? The government of Ukraine is hands, legs, nose, and feet involved in the agricultural production of that country, particularly as it's concerned wheat and export of wheat. It's a government enterprise. You know the way government runs certain things in Nigeria?
Yeah.
We don't seriously because that's why they get their money from. Wheat is like what crude oil is to Nigeria, what wheat is to Ukraine. So the government is fully. You see, no private person can undertake such heavy lifting for any country in such critical sector because just like Qatar is doing today. Why should Qatar come and start building iron and steel plant for you? But they can put that same money in Twitter and get all his profits without leaving Doha. So only the government can do this for you. Nobody built Qatar Energy for Qatar. They built it. They realized they needed to do this. And they built it. Saudi Arabia built Saudi Aramco. All our countries built up their capacities first. Investors come to Qatar. They have private investors. No, don't get me wrong. No. But they have rules. Any investment coming to Qatar must have 51% equity of Qatari citizens. First. Yes.
Can we bring up the argument of colonialization having done damage to our psyche and how we perceive
Qatar
ourselves?
was colonized. Qatar became independent in 1970, early 70s. Qatar was colonized now. Which of these countries were not colonized? Was China not colonized? China was even humiliated, not even colonized. China was humiliated because Britain took over Hong Kong. Portugal took over Macau. Japan took over what was then known as what's now known as Taiwan, it took over Taiwan. So they splitted China into different parts. Before China had the history of being invaded by several dynasties from outside of China, from the Yuan dynasty to the Ming dynasty to the Manchu dynasty. All of these were foreign rulers of China. So no country in the world was without from form of foreign conquest or the other. It's a process of nation building. Saudi Arabia was colonized by the Ottoman Empire from Turkey. Britain was colonized by the Roman Empire. So it's not an excuse. India, that was colonized by the British Empire, had overtaken Britain now, UK, as the fifth largest economy in the world. And one of them today is the Prime Minister of UK. So what are we talking about?
So
we
no
have
excuse.
refused to develop. And I'm saying, we go to these countries, we don't even learn anything. It's as if we just go and come back, the jamboree. We don't take a critical look at it to say, how did they do it to the point that we now have to come to them to ask for help? So the government of Ukraine is fully in charge of their energy and agricultural sector, among many other sectors. Because any developing country must go through that trajectory. This IMF is telling you now to do all of this that they didn't do in Europe. When Europe was trying to recover from the Second World War, the rubbish of the Second World War, IMF didn't give Europe any of this advice. IMF encouraged them to subsidize energy. IMF asked the governments then to kickstart production. That's why most of European economies till tomorrow are dominated by state-owned enterprises. Till tomorrow. Because you need the state to help. It's like you have a responsibility. A typical example is Benue. You think anybody will go into the forest of Benue to go and start establishing agri-produce enterprise along the value chain without the government of Benue itself showing an example in that direction? You think they'll do that? You think anybody will come to Kogi today and begin to think of how to convert all the solid minerals in the state into finished products without the government actually showing the way. Let me tell you an example. This Abuja cement factory I've seen that is not Dangote. It was because how we actually started the vision. How we started, at least on paper. It was that paperwork alone that attracted Dangote to say, okay, you've done some work on paper. Okay, at least it looks viable. That was why Dangote actually came there. Imagine if Audu had taken it a little bit further, or subsidiary administrations, to put in seed investment enough to make Dangote expand. Kogi would have been very wealthy today from the sales of cement, right? We didn't do that. Most state government have not done that. And I'm saying until we have this rethink, we have to rethink our political economic philosophy. And unfortunately, Nigeria has two problems, I must admit this. Two major problems. Apart from incompetent leadership, there are ideas in the public space that needs to just change.
Such as
what we have been operating with. Remove subsidy on petrol. Government has no business in business. This and that, foreign investment and all. We need to change this. We need to switch our thinking from foreign direct investment to overseas direct investment.
But you need capital to actually get to
the
that.
The capital is there. Is that capital that they are using to
buy SUV in Kebbi State?
There. It's there. It is there. Nobody should say that it's not there. It is there.
So it's just to think.
No, I say government must be above board like Caesar's wife, where there's no corruption, where there's no mismanagement of one kobo.
Okay. Well, let's look at some thoughts that have coming anyway. I did doing for us says I was searching everywhere to connect to you guys. I sincerely appreciate Dr. Majeed for making us happy with his analysis. And Ade Jumo Adeyinka says we need to know that it is a global competition and the big countries are not ready to let the seeming third world nation rise. So people are keeping us down. Nicodemus Onyekachi says, a pity that Nigeria can afford to eat a comfortable square meal in their own country. Restore back subsidy was done in Kenya and heaven did not fall. Gideon Ogundele says, great analysis, but our leaders do not listen to all of this. And let's see here. The acclaimed figure of fuel consumption by the NNPC is wrong. So it was challenged by the former immigration, but corruption remains our biggest challenge. Subsidy must be returned, says Olatuja Richard. And Nelson Agohi says, beautiful analysis, practical recommendation, but we all know that we can only keep talking. Would this government ever listen or act differently? Samson Enesi said there's still an opportunity to solve all these challenges. May God help Nigeria. Let's take a few thoughts in quickly. 0700 951 0000. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mr. Majeed. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon, Kim. How are you?
I'm okay. Go ahead.
My name is Comrade Salis. I want to contribute little about what Mr. Majeed talked all is correct and I appreciate. The problem of our country, this country for them is our leader, when would they get for this country, is that they have tribalism is our problem. I belong to see this group, this language, I brought this, I want my people to have all, I want this one to have all. That is our problem with Nigeria for don't okay, please. But I cannot make it okay now. Now we are in problem. Food no day, things is getting out of hand. The quality is taking over everywhere, no security, problem everywhere. Now, the food, this year, there's no food in the country. The one I say, I say is right, what you say is correct, but this one, they are choosing drugs around the country now for the people that are taking our food out. For now, there is no food in Nigeria enough. The one we have now, they are taking out to sell for another African country. Now, when they are carrying our food from here, the one we have, will be going to be lost. You know that first one that has gone caused all this problem, but the one now we are inside problem, they have put us more problem.
All right.
This is why they are seizing the drug is correct. I'm talking for the people that are seizing the drug is good. Let the condition it.
All right, thank you very much. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Dr. Majeed, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Chinelo, and I'm calling.
Go ahead.
Mr. Majeed, you are spot on. All your analysis, you are saying the correct thing and the right thing. It's just that our government, I don't know what is wrong with them. All I would say is that the definition of foolishness is someone doing the same thing all over and getting the same results. He doesn't want to change. That is the foolishness. Thank you, Mr. Majeed.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello? Good afternoon. Hello.
Go ahead. What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Jerry. Hello.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah. What is Majeed is saying is true. India, China, all of them have a colonized masters. But Nigeria own to me is different from their leaders. Because I remember 2023 election. All the leaders, all the campaign, presidential campaign, all of them are going to the Chatham House. Which means they have already relegated themselves to those that were colonized masters. I don't know what they are looking in the Chatham House in London, which is not here in Abuja here. So they have already sell us the second to our colonized, especially Britain. It's true that other countries are following their, but our own is very, very bad. Our leader doesn't believe in ourselves. Because I don't see the reason INEC chairman of INEC office will be in London. INEC office will be in America. Why? Because our leader have realized that if they cannot use those people, they cannot win the election. If they allow, remember what Obasanjo wrote to British embassy. They should allow Nigeria to conduct election for once, even for once.
All right.
No election in Nigeria, British government, our hand is not there.
Okay, I don't understand where that is coming from. So let's move on to the next caller. Hello. You are welcome. Salasi, your connection is not clear. Please call us back. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
All right, what's your name?
Mr. Majeed.
No, sir.
Mr. Majeed has said it all.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Chris. Mr. Majeed has said it all. Anytime you listen to his analysis, he's always right. Let me just shock you. I farm. I do a lot of farm work. The cost of farming 1 hectare in last year and a year before last is less than 250, 300. But with the cost of these varsities, the cost of farming a hectare of land is running to 600,000. Where do you get the money from? So I think the cost of energy, as Mr. Majeed will always say, is the way out for us. But it takes us time to listen. This man has been providing solutions that will help us grow in this country. Mr. Majeed, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Anytime you talk to us, we feel consoled, but we pray that God will help them to listen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Let's hear this caller. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the show. What's your name?
My name is Abubakar.
Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Majeed.
Good afternoon, sir.
For me, it's like I don't think just like I don't think we have a particular political philosophy that we actually supposed to. We know whether we are following this country. Are we a capitalist country or a socialist country, or we are practicing both? Because the way this is now, we are shifting more to the way of capitalism. And the basics that will ensure that this thing succeeds, which is the provisions of just the way Mr. Majeed said, we don't have energy security. We don't have the issue of agriculture. Look, what the government is supposed to do right now, they should invest they should do what they call backward integration. The backward integration in terms of agriculture, let every state compete. Let them, there's what they call comparative advantage. Let each state take 2 or 3 products between food and cash crops. Let them produce massively, more mechanization, and go at the same time in what you call forward integration. The forward integration aspect of this is what Mr. Majeed did. There are some companies that maybe like value-added products, whatever is coming from this agriculture, they could be going to like
public-private partnership.
And make an investment there.
All right, sir.
We must be sincere with us and deal with the economy. We have
All right, sir.
And face the basis.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go on a quick break for the news. We'll be back with more. Stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info.
Worthy ideas, shared passion.
This is Nigeria Info.